The National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, will appeal the High Court decision allowing Eskom to implement a phased recovery. This judgment will see the struggling power utility recover 69 billion over 3 years, resulting in the tariff increases. The first of Eskom's tariff increases is expected to take place in April next year. To discuss this, we joined via Skype by energy expert Ted Blom. Ted, very good morning or good afternoon to you. Quite a lot's been happening at Eskom today, but let's just talk about this increase now at Eskom recently. Let's talk about the impact of the High Court's decision to allow Eskom's tariff increases for the next 3 years.
Okay, so if the appeal doesn't go through, you and I as consumers will face around about a 15% tariff increase on the 1st of April, as opposed to a 5% tariff increase. And that'll be 15% a year, each year for 3 years.
Now, the promise that IMF will tackle the Eskom issue by expediting its unbundling, how does funding and unbundling, how do these two conversations, where do they meet?
Okay, so that's the dilemma that Eskom is sitting with, is that it needs to decouple the financial arrangements from the operations. And notionally, if they still had the systems in place that were in place when I worked at Eskom many years ago, they had a good chart of accounts and it would be quite simple to direct the funds to the qualifying assets. But what Eskom's done over the last 15 years is they've taken funds that should have been channeled towards distribution, repairs, upgrade of the networks, etc., and they've channeled all that to try and finish off Medupi, Kusile, and Ingula. And that's where a lot of corruption also took place. So it would be a bit of a nightmare, but it's not impossible. If they go back to the original chart of accounts, it'll tell them exactly how to apportion the funding.
So Eskom announced plans to cancel a contract to buy as much as 14 billion rand of fuel from Econ Oil and Energy. Is this an indication that the power utility is serious about fighting corruption? Okay,
so look, I think it's to be welcomed. That corruption on the fuel account has been ongoing since 2008 blackout, where everybody, including the hairdressers and heavens know who all, got contracts with Eskom. Under the previous management of Eskom, they were going to rationalize all purchases through Mosgas, but seemingly that didn't quite happen, and the corruption's continued. Now, 14 billion corruption cleansing is to be welcomed, but believe you me, it's a drop in the ocean. There's more than 100 billion rands worth of corruption at Eskom.
The announcement during the week by board member Ray Dabengwa that he was resigning. What will be the ramifications from this? Was it a good or a bad move?
Okay, so I believe that he was not in agreement with the report that highlighted the corruption in the Econ case on the diesel. And I'm not sure whether he was an interested party or not. I don't have any evidence to suggest that. But the bottom line is, if it's losing board members halfway through their term of office is never a good sign. In most cases, they're pretty rough undercurrents that force people to resign. The board directorship is pretty cushy.
Especially a board member who is reported to have the president's ear. Does this? Are we speculating that it's a political move, or perhaps not?
Okay, so I think there could be politics involved, and more so as we've seen more and more grandstanding by the people in the ANC who seemingly are in opposition to the president's moves. So maybe the heat got a bit too much. And I mean, Mr. Mabuza was also a presidential appointment, if you remember correctly. And he also eventually, he left seemingly properly. He fell on his sword when the guarantees he gave the president about load shedding didn't materialize. So I'm not sure. I think time will tell. Eventually it will surface why this particular gentleman resigned from the Eskom board. But I don't think it's a good sign. Never a good sign.
We're speaking today about an imminent price increase, but a lot of consumers have been saying that they're feeling the pinch. It's as if there is some sort of increase that has already been implemented. Do you know anything about this, Ted?
Oh, absolutely. So, yes, consumers in the last month or two would have gotten the new winter tariffs, which are much higher and which will certainly empty your pocket. But on top of that, there's been a lot of other activity, which I'm finding very difficult to understand. I'm finding many cases of Eskom so-called calling faulty meters, accusing people of tampering with meters, and those people have given me categorical and assurances that they've not tampered with the meters. And then Eskom's issuing them with penalties for so-called tampering, which they deny happened. And then on top of that, massive recoveries, they call it rebilling, from individuals and farmers and businesses, ranging from 30,000 Rand for a very small micro business to 100,000 Rand for a small farmer, 600,000 for a farmer, and in case of one lockdown hotel, rebilling of more than 1.2 million Rand. And the hotel's been in lockdown for more than 4 months. Their consumption is totally down because they've had no tenants, but yet they get hit with a rebilling account of over 1.2 million. And I've had this over the last 18 months to 2 years. I've taken some of those to the regulator. Eskom has maliciously not acknowledged the outcome of the regulator hearings, and we've had to go for court orders to enforce some of those. And on top of that, the pace of all that has really increased. So I wouldn't be surprised if more and more people are getting hit with bills that will knock them off their feet. There's something wrong in the system, very wrong.
What's the conversation in the energy space around the ability, Eskom's ability to supply power? One, in those areas where municipalities are set to be in areas, and also the other one around the supply of cheap, reliable power. Is this even still a conversation?
Okay, so the days of cheap, reliable power went out of the window in 2007 when Eskom came with its first super increases. And by the way, all these super increases, which is over 500%, I believe firmly are unconstitutional, and we are busy putting a court case together to go and challenge that. But yes, the days of cheap, reliable power, so the cheap part is out of the window for more than 13 years. Eskom's tariff increases have been the highest in the world. And secondly, reliability has gone out the back door, because Eskom's system is so unpredictable that at the moment there's a hiatus in the system, they come crashing down with load shedding. And also, Eskom's been less transparent and less ethical because they're now calling load shedding load reduction, and they've been load shedding townships by the dozen over the last 3 or 4 weeks, and that concerns me, because I predicted that there would be massive load shedding before the end of July. And they've playing cat and mouse. They now changed the name, and they're telling me that I'm a liar.
Ted, what recourse does the consumer have in all these conversations about increasing fees?
Okay, so there's a number of queries that I've got on behalf of municipalities, and I'll hopefully get a renewed mandate in the next week, where we are seriously challenging Eskom's billing system. There seems to be something very, very wrong. And it affects large municipalities or all municipalities. It affects all consumers as well as pay-as-you-go. So once we've finished, we haven't done the forensic yet. I've been calling for a forensic since 2012. You'll recall that. We've now seemingly a space where enough people are angry and are prepared to support a forensic, and certainly a challenge to the high tariff regime, which, as far as I said, as far as NERSA and Eskom have colluded in an anti-constitutional manner, and we believe we've got a solid case on that. It's just a question of time. I'm a one-man band, so for me to find the funding is not an easy exercise, but I've gained more and more traction, and hopefully before the end of the year, we'll have that court case on the roll.
We'll be watching to see how that unfolds. Thank you so much for talking to us today.
You're welcome.
Ted Blom is an energy analyst talking to us about the challenges at Eskom.